Hi there, welcome to Google Sheets Ready for Work course. I'm Champion and I'll be guiding you step by step to go from zero to confident with Google Sheets. This course isn't just about learning a few functions, it's about helping you feel in control with your spreadsheets at work. Whether you need to organize data, create reports, or analyze trends, you'll be able to do it very quickly and confidently. By the end of this course, you'll learn how to use VLOOKUP, pivot tables, and other powerful tools that can help you save time, impress your boss, and get ahead in your career. And don't worry if you've never used Google Sheets before. I'll keep everything simple and practical so you can start using it right away. In the first lesson, we're going to explore the Google Sheets interface and get comfortable with how it works. Let's dive in. So in this lesson, we'll learn how to go to the Google Sheets homepage. We'll create our first spreadsheet and learn the basic layout of Google Sheets. But before we get into that, what is so great about Google Sheets? Google Sheets is an amazing tool because it's free, easy to use, and accessible from anywhere. Whether you're a teacher organizing grades, an admin worker managing expenses, or just tracking your own budget, Google Sheets is incredibly helpful. Plus, it works online so you can access your sheets from anywhere and on multiple devices. You can also collaborate with others in real time, which is amazing if you're working in a team. So now let's go ahead and navigate to the Google Sheets homepage. To navigate to the homepage, we can simply search on Google Sheets, or we can come up to our browser and type in the link sheets.google.com. Once you do that, go ahead and press enter. And then now we have arrived at our homepage. So if you're automatically logged into your Google account, this page will automatically show up for you. So over down here, we have our Google Sheets that we have used previously. If you haven't used any, then this will be empty for you. But what we're going to do is come over here and click blank spreadsheet to create a new spreadsheet. So go ahead and click that. And I'm just going to make this full screen again. So now we have entered into our first spreadsheet. So this here is called a workbook. And in a workbook, we have many sheets that we can have. So over here is the add sheet button. We can click that to add many sheets. But for now, we're not going to get into that. And I'm just going to go ahead and delete these. So first, we're going to come up to the top left over here. And as you can see, it says untitled spreadsheet. So this is actually the name of our spreadsheet. So what we can actually do is change the name to something like my first spreadsheet. So you can go ahead and do that or give it whatever name you like. And then Google Sheets will automatically save your work as you go. So as long as you see a check mark here, if you click on it, it says all changes saved to Drive. This means that all your changes are automatically saved. So you don't have to worry about losing your data as long as you have an internet connection. Next, I'll briefly touch on this toolbar. So a few key ones are File, where you have the option to share your spreadsheet. You can download it as an Excel file or a PDF file, and many other tools as well. Over in Insert, that's where you can add things like charts, pivot tables, images, checkboxes, drop downs, and a lot more things. Over in Format, that's where you can add things like conditional formatting and alternating colors, where you can essentially change the appearance of your data. But don't worry about memorizing all of these now. I'll guide you along as we use them. Next, we have our menu bar over here. So these are the tools where you can do things such as undo, redo. You can change the size of your sheet. You can set the format of your cells, which I'll get into later. You can change the font size, bold, italics, and a whole bunch of other things. And as mentioned earlier, you don't need to memorize all these for now, as throughout the course, I'll be showcasing the different tools that we'll be using. Next, let's talk about rows, columns, and cells. These are the building blocks of your spreadsheet. Rows go horizontally, and they're labeled with numbers 1, 2, 3, and so on. Whereas columns go vertically, and these are labeled A, B, C, and so on and so forth. So where a row and a column meet is called a cell. So for example, the cell in column A and in row 1 is called cell A1, and a cell in column B, row 2, is called B2. So in cells, you can add things like numbers, you can add text, you can also add dates, you can add so many things in your cells. But for now, we're going to get into our lesson 1. So that is the basic layout of a spreadsheet in Google Sheets. In the next lesson, we'll go ahead and learn how to make our very first table. See you guys there. So now for a fun challenge. In this lesson, we're going to recreate the table in the picture. So if we go ahead and just analyze the table first, we can see that we have 3 columns and we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 rows. And if we take a look at the headers, we have index, day of week, and sales count. So if we look closely, we can see that the headers are actually bolded, and they also have a blue background for the cell color. And for the data, we just have text and numbers. And lastly, everything is actually center aligned. So we'll get into that all later, but let's just take it step by step. So first, let's go ahead and select any cell over here. And let's start with index. So type in index, and then we can press tab to jump over to the cell on the right. Next, we're going to type in day of week, press tab again. And then lastly, we have sales count. So while we're here, let's go ahead and highlight our 3 headers by clicking and dragging. Let's do it one more time. So click and drag to select multiple cells. Now that we have them selected, we can go ahead and bold them. So we can come up to the toolbar up here and look for this B symbol. So if we click it, now the text automatically becomes bold. But we can also use the shortcut Control B. And if you're on a Mac, it might look different for you, but since I'm on a Windows, it's Control B. So with it still highlighted, I can press Control B however many times I want, and it'll bold and unbold. So now that we have it all bolded, let's go ahead and put in the blue colors in the background. So same thing again, highlight the cells you want to add the color to. And then notice how we have 2 color options up here. One is the text color, which is not what we want. We want to change the background, the cell color, which is this button over here called fill color. So go ahead and click it and look for any blue color that you think would fit. There you go. So now let's go ahead and add in our data. So we can click on this cell and type in 1, press enter. So notice how if you press enter, it goes to the cell below. If you typed in 1 and then press tab, it would go to the right. So now I'm going to go to the next cell using our arrow keys as well to navigate. Type in 2, press enter, type in 3, press enter, and so on and so forth. Okay, next we want the day of week. So let's click on this cell and type in Monday, press enter, Tuesday, press enter, and so on and so forth. And the last one, this is a special one. Notice how it says Friday, and then on the next line it says or weekend. So let's go ahead and type that in and see what happens. Friday, bracket, or weekend, close bracket. Notice what happens when I press enter. It doesn't jump to the next line. So how do we get the or weekend to jump to the next line? This is a very handy tool that's very useful, and the shortcut for that is actually hold alternate and press enter. So holding alternate and enter will move your data to the next line. If you're on a Mac computer, the shortcut is option enter. So once you have that entered in, press enter. Then now we can go ahead and type in our sales count. So same thing, navigate to our cell, 10, 100, 200, press enter, 10, press enter, and lastly 10. So now we've gone ahead and put in all our data. Last thing we need to do is center all of our inputs. So go ahead and highlight the entire table by clicking and dragging, and then we can come up here to the horizontal align tool. Click on that, and then we are greeted with 3 options, either left align, center align, or right align. So right now we have it left align and we want it to be center align. Go ahead and click center, and notice that we have successfully created our first table. So tables are useful to keep an organized list of many things, nominal role lists, lists of purchases, and so much more. And in the upcoming lessons, we'll learn how to use the data in these tables for meaningful insights. Great job. Now you know how to navigate Google Sheets and create your first spreadsheet. In the next lesson, we'll dive into entering and formatting data to make it look clean and presentable. Let's be real. No one likes looking at messy, unorganized data. But imagine your boss hands you a raw spreadsheet and you're the one who turns it into something clean, professional, and easy to read. That's exactly what you'll learn in this lesson. By the end, you won't just know how to enter data, you'll know how to structure it in a way that makes sense and looks impressive. Let's dive in. Welcome back. Today we're stepping it up a notch with working with real data. I provided you with a raw data set that's messy and unorganized, and your job today is to transform it into a clean, professional table that's ready to use. Let's get started. So if you haven't already, make sure you go ahead and open up the Google Sheets Ready for Work course workbook and head over to lesson 2. So just a side note, normally I do have the name of the table and the name of the lesson over here. But later on, we're going to realign the table. So since these are merged cells, they're going to be put over for the side for this lesson. So first things first, let's analyze our table. As you can see, the formatting is inconsistent. We have names which are not really readable. They don't really give us good meaning. Some of the column widths are too wide and some of them are too skinny where we can't even see all the data. And even the dates are different formats. So let's go ahead and fix all of this. So first thing, let's resize the column. So what you can do is come up to this area here and you can click and drag to resize our cells. And if you come over here as well and double click, it will automatically resize that column for you. Now for column B, we can double click it as well and it'll automatically resize it for you. Same for C and same for D. Now a pro tip is that you can actually highlight A, B, C, D, and then click and drag any of the cells, or should I say columns, and they'll all align to the same width. And also if you double click, it'll automatically resize everything perfectly for you. So that's how you can resize faster. Next, let's give some meaning to our headers. Right now they're abbreviated and they're not that easy to read from first glance. So maybe let's make this bigger and let's call this serial number. So we'll do it S/N. So this is the product name. For this, maybe we can just call it product. Next, we have amount paid. For this one, we can just call it amount. And then we have date purchase. This one you need to make a little bit bigger. Date purchased. All right, perfect. Now let's just go ahead and bold the headers using Control B if you're on Windows. Next, what we can do is we can also add a border by highlighting all the cells and coming up to this window looking icon called borders. And we're going to apply the all borders button over here. And once you click it, there you have it. Now let's give it a little color by highlighting the headers and going to the fill color. Let's say I wanted to add a little blue color, like a light blue. There we go. Next, what we can do is change the amount format because as you can see, some of them are 49.5 and then some of them are 2 decimal places. What we can do is highlight this column and then we can come up to these buttons over here and click format as currency. Click on that and then now everything is formatted and maybe we'll give this a little right alignment so that looks a little bit better. And lastly, date purchase. So notice a lot of the formats are actually different from each other. What you can do is highlight all the dates and then come up to this 1, 2, 3 icon, which is for more formats. And then we can select the format for these cells. So we want it to be a date. If you want to give it a certain custom date format, we can come down here as well. And let's say we wanted it in this 5th August 1930 format. We can click on that one and click apply. And as you can see, most of them change, but not all of them were fixed. So that is the reality of fixing spreadsheets sometimes. Sometimes you still do have to manually fix things. So in real life, maybe you'd have to double check what this date actually refers to, as the order is a bit weird. But for now, let's just take this as 7th of January 2023. So you can go ahead and type that in, 7 Jan 2023, and press enter. And then for this one is 15th June 2023. 15 June 2023. This one looks like it's 18th July 2023. 18 July 2023. Last but not least, we have 13th of October 2023. 13th of October 2023. So as you can see now we have our headers looking nice. We have our data all well formatted and looking nice. And that is how you turn raw data into a clean, professional looking table. So next, I'm going to show you how to filter data. Filters let you focus on specific parts of your data. For example, let's filter this data to only show items costing more than $1,000. So firstly, highlight your table. And then what we can do is come over here to the create a filter button. It kind of looks like a funnel. Click on that. And then if you look at your headers now, notice that now we have these upside down triangle looking buttons. So these are our filters. So let's say we wanted to sort by amount. We can come over here and click on this button. And then we can sort by A to Z. So if we click on sort A to Z, because this is a number, it will sort from the lowest to highest. And if we want the highest to lowest, it would be sort Z to A. But right now what we can do is we can sort back from 1 all the way to 20. And then let's get all the rows, which are more than $1,000. So come up to this filter again, go to filter by condition, click on none, and then scroll down to greater than. So we're going to look for rows that have amount of greater than 1,000, then click OK. And now we just have the rows which are over $1,000. However, all the other rows are missing. Does this mean that they're deleted? No. So this actually doesn't mean that they're gone. They're still in the table. And as you can see here, notice how our rows go from 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then it skips to 7, 9, 12, 22, 24. So if you ever want to get all your rows back, simply come up to your filter and remove that filter and click OK. And then all your rows will be back. So imagine this. Your boss comes up to you and asks you, what is the total amount from all the products purchased? So normally in real life, you'd calculate this one by one. But with Google Sheets, you can simply do this within 10 seconds using a function. So come up here to the total cell. This is where we'll input all our data. So double click on this cell, and to calculate the sum of multiple cells, we're going to use the sum function. So to use a function, simply type in equals, then the function name, which is sum. Click on it. And then now we need to select our values that we want to find out the sum for. So while the cell is still active, come over to the amount, simply click and drag, and then come back to the cell and close the function using a close parentheses. Then hit enter. So now, within just a few seconds, we can tell the total amount to our boss, which is $20,545. And then let's say he goes on to ask, what is the average amount, what is the max amount, and the min amount, and also the number of products purchased. So the great thing is that there are functions for each and every one of these jobs that we can find out the answer in just a few seconds. So come over to the average cell, and for this one, we're going to use the average function. Click on average, and likewise select the cells again. And then notice how there is also a little pop-up telling you what the expected answer will be. So if you don't have that, simply press F9 on your keyboard. F9 will pop it up for you. So go ahead and click enter. Then notice that the average amount spent for all the 20 products is $1,027.25. Next, let's get the max. So for this, you guessed it, we can use the max function. Select all the cells and then close it. And now that we can see that the product with the biggest amount was $3,899. And as you can see, it's right here with the Canon EOS R5. Next, let's get the min. For this, we can use the min function. Select all the cells, then close and press enter. And the lowest amount was $49, which can be seen right here, the Razer product. Lastly, let's get the number of products. So imagine you didn't have this serial number on the side over here. To calculate the number of products, we can simply use a very useful function called count. So you can press tab, it'll show you what to input. And let's say you wanted this to appear for you. Let's say you have it looking like this. Simply press on this question mark right here. It'll show you what is supposed to be inputted into this function. And it also tells you a little bit about the function. So this one returns the number of numeric values in a data set. So for this one, what we can do is we can select all the numeric values. And then notice as I drag, the expected answer will also automatically update as well. So go ahead and press close parentheses, press enter, and there we have 20. So let's say if we wanted to use text instead of numeric values, we can use the count A function, press tab, and select all the products, close parentheses, and press enter. So using these functions, we can easily find out the total, average, max, min, and number of products in just a few seconds. So it's very essential to learn these functions as they'll help you save so much time and help you to be more efficient at your job. Fantastic job. You've just taken messy, raw data and turned it into a clean, organized, and professional table. These skills will make your spreadsheets much easier to use and share at work. In the next lesson, we'll dive into VLOOKUP, an amazing tool that helps you find specific information in large data sets. I'll see you there. This lesson is a game changer. This isn't just about typing formulas, it's about solving problems fast. Imagine if your boss asks, can you find this data? Can you flag the important numbers? Can you combine information with multiple pieces? After this lesson, you'll confidently say, yes, I can. These are the formulas that will make you stand out, save you time, and make you the go-to person at work. Welcome back. Today we'll learn how to use essential formulas that will save you time and make your work more efficient. Let's start with VLOOKUP. So if you haven't already, go ahead and open up your Google Sheets Ready for Work course workbook and navigate to lesson 3-1. So let's say you have this table of task assignments where you have the task ID, the task description, the employee ID of who's in charge of each task. Let's say you need to fill up the columns of the name and the department of which employee ID it's from. So luckily, if we navigate over to lesson 3-2, we're provided with the employee directory. So we're going to use this employee directory to help us complete the table in lesson 3-1. So in this employee directory, we have the employee ID along with their name, their department, and their email and phone number. In this case, we only need their name and department. So if we were to fill up this manually, let's say if we want to fill up E002, what we would do is, remember this, go to lesson 3-2, look at employee ID number 2, and then we can go ahead and copy Bob Johnson and the IT department. Come back and press Control-Shift-V so it pastes it as values. However, this is really slow because then we would have to do it for the rest of the 18 tasks over here. And in real life, sometimes your table might be as long as hundreds or thousands of rows. So how would we be able to fill up these columns in just a few seconds? Well, this is where the VLOOKUP function comes in. So to use the VLOOKUP function, what we can do is go ahead and select your cell, type in equals, and then type VLOOKUP, just like this. And then first we need to enter the search key. So what is the key that we're looking from the employee directory? So that is the employee ID. So we're going to come over here and select the employee ID, and then we're going to press comma. Next, we need the range. So the range is where we're searching up the key from. So while the cell is active, we can head over to lesson 3-2, and we can highlight the entire table just like this. Click and drag, and then let go. And then what we're going to do is we're going to make this an absolute reference. So to do that, simply press F4 on your keyboard. And if you don't have F4 on your keyboard or you can't find it, you can simply add the $ before the letters and before the numbers. This makes sure that when you copy your formula down to your other cells, it will lock this directory in place such that you are using the correct table. So then we can come to the edge here and press comma. And then now we need the index. So if we come back to our lesson 3.1 cell, what we require first is the name. So if we come back to our lesson 3-2, we can see that the name is in the second column of the table. So employee ID is 1, name is 2, department is 3, so on and so forth. So we want to return the second column. And as you can see, it's already highlighting what name would be returned. But let's go ahead and complete this formula. So press comma. So for is sorted, go ahead and put false. So you either put false or true depending on whether the data is sorted or not. But you really don't need to think about that right now. For 99% of cases, you're going to use false. So just go ahead and enter false and then press enter. So as you can see, Charlie Lee is returned. And just to double check that it works, we can come back to 3-2. The employee ID with number 3 is indeed Charlie Lee. So now what we can actually do to copy down the formula to all the cells, we can come to this cell and go to the corner and double click it. And as you can see, in just less than a second, all the names are returned. So this is so much faster than doing it manually. And let's go ahead and fill out the departments. So what we can actually do is we can actually copy this same formula, press Control-C, escape from this, and paste it over here. Now, the only thing that we would have to change actually is the index. So right now, if we look back at our lesson 3-2, the index that we need for the department is index number 3. So let's go back and we can double click on this formula and just change it to number 3 and press enter. So this would return marketing. Let's just double check that it is indeed marketing. And yes, it is marketing. And then now, last but not least, we can either click and drag to copy down the formula just like this, or we can double click like we did earlier for the names. So that is how you use VLOOKUP. You take the employee ID or the search key, you come to your range, and you vertically look up for the key, and then you would return the index of the data from your range. So that is how you use VLOOKUP. It's a very important tool to learn, so I recommend doing this another time if you're still not familiar with it, as you'll definitely use it a lot in your line of work or even in your personal work. Next, I'm going to teach you how to use the if function in Google Sheets. So head over to lesson 3-3. And for this, we have a grade tracker with our student ID, their name, how much they scored, and their status. So we're going to have to fill up their status, whether they passed or failed. And the passing mark is 60, as you can see over here. So likewise, if we were to do this manually, it would take a long time. And let's say if you even had hundreds and thousands of rows, it would take forever. So to simply do this, we can use the if function. So go ahead and double click on the cell and type in equals if, press tab. And first we need the logical expression. This basically means what is our rule? Is this cell greater than this cell? Does this cell equal something? So in our case, we're going to check if this cell, if this score is greater or equal to this score over here. So we're going to do greater or equal to 60. So we can select this cell and then press comma. And then next we need to enter the value if true. So if the score is equal or greater to 60, that means the student passed. So we're going to type in open quote, pass, close quote. So just make sure you're not entering pass without the quotes, as Google Sheets won't understand that as a text. So you actually need to add in quotation marks. Either single or double quotation marks are perfectly fine. Next, we need to press comma, and we need to put a value if false. So that means if the rule doesn't hold, so if this score is less than the passing mark, what we want to do is put fail. Likewise, put the quotation marks, and then after that, we can close it with our close parentheses and press enter. So as you can see, it has put fail, and then now we can just come over to the corner of the cell and double click. So as you can see here, it all says pass, which is not correct. As you can see, 52 should be a fail. So the reason why this happens, and I actually purposely did this, is to show you that if you put F6 without the dollar signs and not make it an absolute reference, notice if you double click on this formula, the passing mark cell will automatically lower by 1 because we copied it down by 1. Likewise, since we copied it down by 2 cells, it will take the passing mark from 2 cells down. So to fix this, simply press Ctrl Z to delete the copy down formula. Come back to your original formula, highlight F6 and press F4, or simply add the dollar sign so that it will hold that cell in place when you copy down the formula. Press enter. Now we can double click the corner of the cell. And if we double check, we can see that F6 is held throughout all the formulas, just like this. So now we can take a look. We can see that 45 is a fail, 40 is a fail, 83 is a pass, and 60 is also a pass. So that is how you use the if function in Google Sheets. Now here in lesson 3-4, we're going to use the concatenate function to get the full name and also the contact info. So as you can see here in this sheet, we have our event registration list. So we have the first name, we have the last name, email of the person, the phone number of the person, and these are the cells that we want to make. We want to fill up the full name and the contact info. So to do this, we can simply come to our cell and type in the concatenate function. Press tab. And what we're going to do to get the full name, we need the first name and the last name. So simply select the first name and then press comma. And then you might think we need to select the last name, but notice if we do that and we close off the function and press enter, it will combine the name but not leave a space in between them. So to fix this, simply come in between the first and the last name, simply type in comma, and we're going to add in our own space using quote, space, close quote. So whenever we use quotation marks, Google Sheets registers that as a text. So we have a space in between that we want to combine. So right now, concatenate is basically combining the first name plus the space plus the last name. Now you can press enter, and now we have Bob Johnson. And now we can go ahead and double click to copy down that formula. And now we have all the full names. Next, to get the contact info, this is going to be a bit of a longer formula, but no worries, I'll take you through it every step of the way. So as you can see here, we have Alex Smith. So we have the full name. Then notice how we have a space dash space email, and then we have the actual email, and then we have a space dash space phone, and then the actual phone number. So this is going to be a bit of a long formula, but it's really simple and I'll take you through it. So go ahead and double click on your cell, type in equals, then the function concatenate, press tab. The first string that we want is the full name. So since we've already created the full name, we can actually just select this cell and then type in comma. I'm just going to close this off first so we can see what required info we need. If you ever want that back, you just type in F9, to open and F9 to close. So next we need a space dash space email colon space. So to put in a text, open quotation mark, space dash space email colon space. Notice how there's another space in between the email and the actual email. And then close quotation mark. Then next we need the email address. So select the email address, type in comma. Then next we need space dash space phone colon space. So open quotation mark, space dash space phone colon, and then type in space and then close quotation mark. Then last but not least, we need our actual phone number. So we're going to go over to the phone number, select it, and then now we can close it off with our close parentheses and press enter. Perfect. It's just a little bit out of the box. So what we can do to resize that, come up here and just expand it just like that. And then now we can go ahead and double click the corner of the cell. We can just make this a little bit bigger again. And there you have it. Now we have the full contact info of each person in this table. Great job. You've just learned how to use 3 essential formulas, VLOOKUP, if, and concatenate, to make your work faster and more efficient. In the next lesson, we'll explore pivot tables, a powerful tool for summarizing and analyzing data. See you there. Think about this. When you open a spreadsheet, do you want to search for important data, or do you want it to jump out at you instantly? That's what conditional formatting does. It highlights what matters, overdue tasks, top performers, important trends, without you wasting time. This skill isn't just about making things look nice, it's about making data work for you. Let's dive in. Welcome back. Today we're diving into conditional formatting, a feature that makes your data visually intuitive by adding highlights based on rules we set. So go ahead and open up lesson 4-1. And for this sheet, we're going to use conditional formatting to highlight the rows of the people who failed. So let's say your boss comes to you and gives you this grade tracker, which has student ID, the name, the score, and the status. And let's say your boss comes to you and says that it's too difficult to really see where all the failures are at. Is there a way you can make it stand out? So we can easily do this with conditional formatting. So to do this, simply highlight your tables, click and drag, and then what we can do is we can press the shortcut Control-Shift-Down arrow key. So if you press Control-Shift-Down arrow key, it will automatically know where your table ends, and it will highlight each and every cell. So then once you have your table highlighted, come up to the Format tab up here, and then look for Conditional Formatting. Click on Conditional Formatting. And if you look to your right side, this little menu will pop up for you. So to briefly go over this, we have apply to range. So the range is basically the table that we want the conditional formatting to apply to. And then now coming down to format rules. So the most important one that we want to work on is format cells if, and click on this drop down list. And we have many different options. And to start, we're going to look for text is exactly. So what conditional formatting allows us to do is set a rule. So if text is exactly, for example, fail, we want to highlight that green. So go ahead and type in fail. And if we look to our table right now, it will automatically highlight the fail cells in green down to the last cell as well. So we can scroll back up, and then we can also, let's say we want to change the color to red. We can do this by clicking this tool over here and coming down and selecting a red color. We also have the option to bold or make it italics or underline it. So we're given many different options that we can play with. Now this looks good in the sense that it highlights the cells which show fail. But to make this look even better, I'm going to teach you how to highlight the entire row of each person that failed. So to do this, come over to your format rules and select the drop-down list and go all the way down to custom formula is. So we can first go ahead and delete this. And then now we're going to put in a formula. So all formulas always start with an equal sign. So go ahead and type equals. And then we need to write the formula for our first row in our range. So the very first row in this case is row 6. And where the status is in our column D. So we're going to type in D6. And we want to flag out if D6 equals fail. So type in fail with quotation marks around it. The last thing that you need to do is just put a $sign in front of the letter D. And then once you do that, it will automatically highlight the entire row. So make sure you have that $ behind the letter. Otherwise, it'll look like this, which is not what we want. So I'm just going to put the $ back. And then now we can go ahead and click done and close this off. And now if we scroll down, we can see that the people who failed automatically pop out at us, and it's super easy to see and super easy for your boss to read as well. So conditional formatting is really useful as it helps to make important information pop out at you immediately. So next, I'm going to teach you how to use conditional formatting to highlight the overdue payments. So right now we have this payment tracker table with the invoice ID, the client name, the amount due, and most importantly, the due date in this case. So today's date for me is 26 February 2025. All these dates will look different for you depending on the date that you're doing this lesson and working on this sheet. But the steps I'll show you to highlight the overdue payments are exactly the same, so I'll guide you through it every step of the way. So today's date is 26 February 2025. And if we look at our payment tracker, we can see that 25, 24, 23, 22, and 21, these are all overdue payments. So I want it to be able to highlight these cells automatically even when the day changes. So even when the next day comes around to the 27th of February, this row should be automatically updated to be highlighted as an overdue row. So let's go ahead and do that. So first thing, highlight your table by clicking and dragging, then go up to Format, and then look for Conditional Formatting. And then now what we're going to do is select our format rule to be a custom formula. Now to start the formula, we always start with an equals, and then what we want to do is write the rule for the first row. So in this case, it is row 6, and the due date can be found in column D. So for cell D6, if this date is before today's date, so if before today's date, so instead of using this cell, what we can use is the today function. So the today function is simply spelled as today and then put brackets. And then the last thing we need to do for this formula to work is just simply put a $ in front of the D. So that is the complete formula. And as you can see in our payment tracker, the overdue rows have been highlighted green. I'm going to change this to red as I think that is a better color to be reflected. And just to explain the today function, actually, that is a function that you can use in any of the cells, just like VLOOKUP, if, concatenate, and you can simply try it out for yourself by typing today and then open and close parentheses. And when you press enter, it'll show what today's date is. So today is the 26th of February, 2025. And I also want to mention that this function will automatically update each and every day. So when it hits 12 a.m., the date will go from 26th to 27th February. You don't have to retype in the formula. So this is why conditional formatting is so good, because that means the table will update with the colors automatically. I'm just going to delete this. So that is what this formula is doing. It's basically taking cell D6, and if it's less than today, then it will highlight that row. And then it will check that rule with the other rows and highlight accordingly. So now we have the overdue rows. Now I'm going to add another rule, and instead of doing it before today, if an invoice is due today, so we put equals, I'm going to highlight this yellow. So as we can see, today's date is the 26th of February, and the invoice with the date 26 February is highlighted. We can also do bolding and italics and underlining if you need it to stand out. But for now, I'm just going to undo that and keep it as yellow. And then what we can do is we can add one more rule, and we can say that if the date is after today, then we're going to color this green because we don't need to worry about it right away. And then we can go ahead and click done. So now we have a payment tracker which automatically turns red, yellow, or green depending on whether the invoice is overdue, if the invoice is due today, or if the due date hasn't passed yet. So this is a really useful way to use conditional formatting. And the best part about conditional formatting is you can apply whatever colors you like. And if you want to bold it, give it italics and everything like that. So now we're here in lesson 4-3. And for this lesson, I'm going to use conditional formatting to apply a color scale to sale price. So we have this sales data, which has our date, employee, item, category, and the sales price. So the sales price is what we're going to work with today. So in the previous videos, we highlighted our entire table, but to add a color scale, we only need to highlight the sale price. So go ahead and highlight the sale price, come up to Format, and then look for conditional formatting. And then now navigate to the menu over here, and up top we have single color and color scale. So click on color scale. And then now, as you can see here, it's very similar to single color, which we have our range and then our format rules. What rules do we want to apply? So right now the default format rule, which is white to green, is applied. So as we can see here, the lower prices are colored closer to white and the higher prices are colored to green. And let's say we want to change this to something more like red to white to green. So if we click on that, we can see that the lower prices are colored closer to red and the higher prices are colored closer to green. And the same thing, you do have the option to use different colors. Let's say if you want to use purple, for example, to represent the lower numbers, or orange to represent the higher numbers, you can simply do that. I'm going to press Ctrl Z to leave it as green and red, as I think that's very intuitive. And then we can go ahead and close the menu. So that is how you can use a color scale to highlight pricing trends, which can make it very easy to spot high or low value sales. Fantastic work. We've just gone through 3 powerful examples of conditional formatting, highlighting failing grades, overdue payments, and using color scales for sales data. These techniques make your data easier to read, prioritize, and analyze at a glance. There's so much more you can explore with conditional formatting, like creating more complex rules or combining it with filters. But for now, you're ready to use it in your work. This is a skill that separates spreadsheet beginners from professionals. Pivot tables lets you instantly summarize thousands of rows of data and turn them into insights. Imagine your boss asks, "Who's our top performer? What's our biggest sales category? What trends should we focus on?" With pivot tables, you can answer those questions in seconds. This is the skill that will set you apart. Let's jump in. Welcome back to lesson 5. So in this lesson, we're going to use a pivot table to summarize the data in this table. So over here, we have sales data, which includes our date, the employee, the item they sold, what category the item belongs to, and the sale price. So let's say if you want to get some insights and find some trends and patterns from this table, what we can do is create a pivot table. So to do this, go up to Insert and click on Pivot Table. Next, we're going to be greeted with this little pop-up that says Create Pivot Table. So we first need to select our data range. So go ahead and select the data range over here. And then what we can do is click and drag to highlight the table. So make sure that you start from the headers, click and drag and highlight the entire table, just like that. And then go ahead and press OK. Now we want to insert this into a new sheet. You do have the option of inserting it into the current sheet right here, but I'm going to insert into a new sheet. So go ahead and press Create, and then a new sheet will be created. And over here, we're greeted with this template where the rows will be put over here, the columns will be over here, and the values will be over here. So now if we come over to our pivot table editor on the right, we can see that we have our table headers on the very right side, which we are able to click and drag into our rows, columns, values, and filters. But I'm just going to leave this here for now. Now, if you open up your suggested, it might be automatically open for you. So what this is Google Sheets will sometimes try and predict what type of pivot table you are making. And it might be the pivot table that you're trying to make. But for now, for the purpose of this video, I'm going to teach you how to do it from scratch. So it's very, very simple. I'm going to take you through it step by step. So the very first thing is we need to add some rows. So I'm going to go ahead and click the add button, and I'm going to click on employee. So notice that when we add the employee to the rows, our row over here will fill up with all the employees in our sales data. And as you can see here, we're going to make this a little bit bigger actually. We can choose the order to be ascending or descending. And also we have this little checkbox, which we can show the totals. So usually in a pivot table, you want to keep this checked. Now the next thing that we can come in and do is we can actually add another row, such as the item. So in our first row, we have the employee, and in the second row, we have the item they sold. So immediately we can see that Alice Smith, she sold a camera, charger, and a printer, whereas someone like Diana Cruz, she sold a camera, phone, printer, speakers, and a tablet. So I'm going to come over here and click on the X button to get rid of that. And next, I'm going to move on to the columns. So what do I want to put across this column? So I'm going to go and click on the Add button and click on Item. Let me just make this smaller. So when I do that, now I can see all the items that were in the sales data. So now that we have the employee in the row, the items in the column, Now we need our values. So the values will go in between the intersection between the employee and the item. So head over to your values and click on add. And for this, I'm going to add the sale price. Now look what happens when I add the sale price. Immediately, we can see that Alice Smith made $600 from selling cameras. She made $10 from selling a charger, $200 from selling a printer, and the grand total that she sold was $809.99. Now this pivot table is really useful for immediately finding trends and insights, because as we can see here, we can see that every one of the employees had sold a camera and only Ethan King had sold a chair. So maybe we can see that cameras are selling better than chairs, so maybe you would focus more on that. Additionally, on the bottom, we can see the totals and which item made the most money. And the totals on the right side, we can see which employee made the most money. So right off the bat, we can see right here, Diana Cruz had made the most with $4,548. So additionally, we also have the options to summarize not just by the sum, but also things like the count. So when we change it to count, we can see how many individual items were sold by each employee. So everyone had sold one camera except for Charlie. Charlie sold 2 cameras. We can see that only one person sold a tablet, and that was Diana Cruz. And if we switch it back to our sum, and now if we go over to show as default, we can also choose other options such as percentage of row. So when we see percentage of row, we can see that 74% of Alice's sales came from a camera. We can also see insights such as for Ethan King, 51% of sales came from selling phones. So it's a really, really useful tool. So I'm just going to put this back to default. So using rows, columns, and values, you can easily summarize data extremely fast. So lastly, moving on to filters. So go ahead and click the add button over here. And I'm going to filter my pivot table by the sale price. So with filters, what I can do is I can click on the drop-down list, and I'm given this little menu where I can choose what data is to be shown depending on what filter I have. So let's say if I wanted to clear everything and I only want to select those items that are less than $100. So this one and this one. Click OK. And now we can see who are the employees who sold these low price items. We can also come back to the filter and clear it and also select the high priced items, for example, over $1,000, and click OK. And immediately we can see there were 4 employees who sold a phone, 1 employee who sold a tablet, and maybe we would want to focus more on these employees. So the great thing about pivot tables is that it's dynamic and that you can manipulate the filters and the values and the columns and the rows, and the table will automatically update based on your selections over here. So once you're done with the filter, what you can do is you can keep it there, or you can actually choose to remove it. And when you do that, it will show all the data without the filter. So pivot tables are a really useful skill to learn, as it can help you summarize and pull insights and trends from your data with just a few clicks. Awesome work. Today you've learned how to create and customize pivot tables to summarize data quickly. Whether you're analyzing sales, expenses, or performance metrics, pivot tables will make you look like a pro at work. With just a few clicks, you can answer critical questions and create impressive reports that your boss will love. Congratulations on completing the Google Sheets Ready for Work course. You've just taken a huge step at becoming more confident, efficient, and valuable at work. Think about where you started. Maybe spreadsheets felt overwhelming. Maybe you weren't sure where to begin. But now, you've learned how to organize data, use functions like VLOOKUP, highlight key information with conditional formatting, and even analyze trends with pivot tables. That's huge. And the best part, you now have skills to solve real-world problems. Whether it's automating reports, summarizing data, or organizing information in a way that makes you stand out, you're ready to take on any spreadsheet challenge that your boss or team throws at you. The last thing I'd love to say is that the fact that you've gone through this course already sets you apart. Most people don't take the time to improve themselves, but you did. And that means that you're serious about leveling yourself up and making an impact at work. Now go put these skills to work, use what you've learned, keep practicing, and don't stop improving. You are ready for this. Thank you so much for being a part of this course. I'm so proud of what you've accomplished. And remember, this is just the beginning. So I'll see you guys in the next training, and don't forget to connect with me for more Google Sheet tips. You got this.